Tamaki got his backstory at long fucking last. Well, Tamaki and Mirio to be exact, we did find out last week that Tamaki and Mirio are very close emotionally. Best friends isn't a stretch. This week we pretty much got to know what last week wanted to tell us, but with much more detail, as well as the fight between Tamaki and 3 Expendables. A truly fantastic display of Tamaki's quirk, but we still didn't get to see Tamaki's trump card, which is supposedly the swordfish that Fatcom handed to him. So no doubt he's keeping the best for last. I mean, that's just common sense, really, isn't it? The backstory of Mirio and Tamaki is probably one of the greatest things about this chapter. Well, it was to me at least. I'm a huge fan of Tamaki and Majiki, and to see some backstory was great. We get some insight on how they grew up together already from their younger days, long before they actually joined the UA Academy. Tamaki, as you may imagine, was already at that age suffering from a lack of confidence in himself, except in his younger days it was really nothing to do with hero work at all. It seemingly had more to do with the fact that Tamaki had trouble getting friends. But it is around this time that he actually met Mirio, which is pretty much the only guy aside from the teachers who noticed him in a positive way. What piqued my interest, and probably many others as well who've read this chapter, was that while Mirio is considered the top of the UA Academy at the moment, this wasn't always the case. He was a really slow learner and stuff like that in his earlier days, but what he did have was confidence, and that is pretty much what separated him from Tamaki. But Mirio does say that Tamaki is not actually below Mirio in terms of strength. He even goes as far as to suggest that if not for Tamaki being around while Mirio was growing up, he might not have been as positive and powerful as he is in the present. We learned that Tamaki's strong will to keep trying and becoming the best is what kept Mirio going, and this is something that could build quite a bit of discussion. That discussion being who is actually stronger, Tamaki or Mirio. It's no longer that clear to me. Mirio was the obvious choice before because the pro hero's word was all that we had to go on really, but if Mirio can suggest that Tamaki is a huge factor in his own power, then Tamaki is obviously fighting on the same tier and always has. I did say in my video about Tamaki that if his confidence becomes better with time, then he might be able to be side by side with Mirio, and this pretty much confirms that idea. The last important part about their backstory is, on top of claiming that Tamaki is the key to Mirio's power, Mirio is also the very reason that Tamaki chose his name Sun Eater. Because while he may be gloomy on the outside, the limitless resolve within him is enough to shine brighter than any sun to the point of devouring them, thus becoming Sun Eater. It'll be very interesting to see if there will be even more backstory revolving around these two. I really hope so, but at the same time it's not that surprising if they wrap it up on what we have right now, because we did pretty much get to know what we needed. Okay, let's move on to Aizawa, who actually aids Tamaki in his fight, or at least for a while. We see how both Tamaki and Aizawa fight the Expendables, and well, he doesn't actually do all that much. He manages to erase all 3 of their quirks, which opens a window for Tamaki to attack, which he does, or well, he begins to restrain the Expendables at the scene with his octopus tentacles. Speaking of Aizawa though, it will be interesting to see if something actually happens to him in the future, possibly even in this arc. Something that causes him to lose his own quirk for good, because to me Aizawa's quirk and Eri's quirk seem very similar, but the difference is that Eri's quirk actually damages whatever it is that makes a quirk usable. So if Aizawa was faced with a tough situation, he actually might end up having to take a bullet or something else created with that drug created through Eri's quirk. We did actually find out what Eri's quirk is called, and it turns out that her quirk is known as deterioration. So it could be that we're building up to a moment where Aizawa is to become a victim to Eri's quirk in order to save someone else or whatever, because he's part of the older generation and will most likely not hesitate to stop a student from losing its quirk. In fact, that someone might be Deku, because we know that the relationship between Aizawa and Deku is quite special. Aizawa really does not fancy Deku, but ever so slowly there has been development on that end. They are seemingly growing more okay with each other, so it's really not an impossibility to see Aizawa give his all to defend Deku, not only as his teacher but also for the fact that he can see the potential that Deku has. Alright, now let's talk about Tamaki again, but not simply Tamaki, his quirk usage to be more specific within this chapter, because we did see some crazy shit from him as he was handling the expendables once Aizawa had actually left him on his own. What we see mostly is of course the foods that would be found in a takoyaki, whatever that is. So we get octopus, clams, and I think there's crab or lobster in there as well, because we do see this huge fucking claw at one point which broke the anti-quirk weaponry to pieces. So this guy means business. He definitely learns from his mistakes. He was shot at one point by an anti-quirk bullet and he has no intention of feeling that pain or that feeling in general ever again. Tamaki also says something like that his octopus proficiency is at its peak, so that kinda makes me wonder if the more of a certain food he eats, the stronger it becomes within the time limit that he has. I might be missing something on that end, but from what I understand, that is what he was getting at. But the thing is that even with all of these animal proficiencies, he didn't wipe out the expendables out like they were nothing. Once Aizawa's quirk was up, they posed a challenge once again, but around the end of the chapter we do get to see what Tamaki is truly made of, or rather, we got to see that Tamaki wasn't really trying up until now. What I mean by that is of course that we got to see him actually merge two different types of food together, creating octopus and clam I think into one, which pretty much created this hardened octopus gauntlet thing. And what makes his quirk usage in this fight so incredible is that we've not even seen that supposed swordfish buff yet. Fatgum gave him swordfish to eat, but so far he hasn't even showed it to us, so clearly something is going to happen soon that will blow everyone's mind beyond what it already did this week. Hirokoshi writes these chapters so well that you just can't wait for the following one, and especially when it's a character like Tamaki who isn't actually a main character. I mean, he is to some degree in this arc at least, but overall he, Mirio and the girl from the top 3 are pretty much side characters at the end of the day, and yet we're seeing these pretty fucking epic showdowns with these guys. I mean, so far we basically had nothing coming from the main characters other than Kirishima's new form when he was dealing with that thug in the alley, so no doubt Hirokoshi has great things planned for them as well. I mean, I doubt we'd be seeing greatness coming from like side characters or temporary main characters, whatever you want to call it, and then not have the actual main cast not do much. In a way, I kind of want that to be the case because it would really add to the way this story progresses. But yeah, I don't really think it will be the case. One thing that I like with this arc, so far at least, is that Bakugo and Todoroki aren't really in it at all, giving other characters more spotlight, and I'm pretty sure that's the exact reason with this. So the one thing that I haven't really touched on is the expendables that showed up in this fight. Their names are Setsuno, Hojo, and Tabe. And well, the one who shines the brightest is Hojo because he pretty much poses the biggest challenge to Tamaki, yet Setsunu also causes some troubles to say the least. So Hojo's quirk is basically to crystallize himself, which definitely doesn't work in Tamaki's favor to begin with, as Hojo's attacks basically shatters his clam shields very easily, and then we have Setsunu who apparently can retrieve anything on someone else's body into his own hands. And quite inconveniently, Tamaki's quirk transformations seem to count as something on someone's person, as it's mentioned in this chapter. So the clam armor that he conjures or whatever are taken away from him to give Hojo a better shot at Tamaki. So while Setsuno preaches on about how Chisaki took them in when they had nothing else to live for, Tamaki pretty much destroys Hojo through that quirk merging that I mentioned before. Or well, he doesn't actually wreck him, I don't think. It's a bit unclear, but he stopped him cold at the very least. I think their hands or something connected, and even with crystallizing, Tamaki's reinforced hand handled it like a champ. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this week's chapter of My Hero Academia. It was a very good chapter. I'd probably give it an 8 or 9 out of 10. I'm usually pretty generous, so keep that in mind. Me liking Tamaki a lot might affect my rating heavily, but regardless, it was a really nice chapter, and I hope that next week produces something even better. And I have no doubt that it will indeed be great next week also. Anyway, I'll be ending off the review here. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And as always, if you did, please like this video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been your favorite host, Perm, and I'll see you soon.